Hi, and welcome to Run Tall with Tim. I'm Tim, and today I'm reviewing the Hoka Gaviota 3. If you're new to the channel, I post videos on both Wednesday and Saturday mornings, and it's at 5 a.m. Standard Eastern Time here in the US. I also like to post bonus videos once in a while, but I never know when that's going to be. So if you enjoy watching running shoe reviews as well as other videos related to running, be sure to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time that I upload new content. Also, if you want to save yourself a little time, I tried to make that easy for you. I've created chapters. All you have to do is open the description and click on the timestamp for the part of the video that you want to watch, and it's going to take you right there. Now, the Gaviota and I, we have a long history together. I put over 1,000 miles on a single pair of the Gaviota 2s. And you can see, it held up pretty well. Now, the green, that's from me mowing my lawn in these shoes. So they've long since been retired out of my shoe rotation, but I'm still getting a little bit of work out of them still as of today. But you can see where, after 1,000 miles, it did wear that outsole rubber thin. But the upper, that held up tremendously well over that time. Now, Hoka's made some changes with the Gaviota 3. Now, they're minor changes, but I think they've had a pretty significant impact on both the fit as well as the performance of these shoes. And I'm excited to tell you all about that. Before I do, let me just demonstrate what it looks like to run in these shoes. It's something that I always like to do. Remember, you can skip by it if you want to save yourself a little time, but I think it's always nice if you can see for yourself what it looks like when the shoes hit the ground, and you can see the compression of the foam, you can see the pronation in the heel, and all that kind of good stuff. But then, when we come back together, we're going to take a real deep dive into the Gaviota 3 to see if it's the right shoe for you. So let's start with the cost. They run $160 US. I did see that at Running Warehouse, they're taking pre-orders for a ship date that's going to happen sometime in April. So if you're wanting to get these on your feet, you might want to get your order in as soon as possible. That way you don't have to wait too awful long. Let's talk about some of the changes that they made. And, they've gained a little bit of weight. They run 11.3 ounces for a men's size 9, and that's just about a half an ounce heavier than the Gaviota 2 was. Looking at the upper now, they made a few changes here as well. One of the things that I want to note before we get started looking at the upper too closely It's just the overall fit. And these run a bit more narrow than the earlier version of the shoe. So much so that when I first put them on, I went and checked the size because I thought maybe they'd sent me a men's size 8.5 instead of a 9 because they fit that much more snug across my midfoot, especially than the Gaviota 2s did. So just know that if the Gaviota 2 fits you perfectly and you have a wide foot, these are probably going to be a little too snug. So you might want to consider, either ordering the wide version, or if you have the opportunity and you have to, if you can go into the store and try them on, that would be ideal. But if you have to order them online and you have the ability, maybe order both versions of the shoe and send back the one that doesn't fit. With the material that they use, it's a engineered mesh material, which is not unlike what they had in the past. But I do feel like this isn't quite as cool on foot as the previous version of the shoe. And in part, they have a full gusset here. And anytime you have a fully gusseted tongue, that does restrict the airflow, especially up around your midfoot area. Now, it's warmed up just a tad here, so it's not hot by any means, but it was probably around high 40s when I took that run that you saw in the run sequence, and my feet were absolutely comfortable at that temperature. I don't know what it's going to be when it gets to be 85 or even 90 degrees here, if that airflow is still going to be sufficient enough to keep me comfortable while I'm out running. So a little bit more testing to come down the road, and I'll let you know how that goes when the time comes. So let's zoom in and we'll take a much closer look at this engineered mesh material that they have on the upper. And as we do that, again, you can see that they do have some perforations up in the toe box, but not as many as they did on the Gaviota 2. And I'll do a full comparison between these two, at some point here, probably in the near future. Now, as we pan around to the side of the shoe, we can see that they did continue those perforations around, back towards about where the heel collar of the shoe is. And then they have a plastic overlay there of their Hoka logo. And then, of course, you can see that they have a plastic clip on the outside in the heel counter. Now let's take a look at the lace enclosure system. And it's got 3 different layers. You've got the tongue that's gusseted. That's the first layer. And then on top of that, you have a tabbed system. Now those tabs go all the way down to the midsole of the shoe. And then on the outside is the upper material. And then together, it makes up this H system that they have across that midfoot. Now, I felt like I could get really dialed in and get that midfoot snugged up really well for me. Now, I know that, across the toe box and that midfoot section of the shoe is, like I mentioned in the beginning, a bit more narrow than it is in the other shoes. So I know for some runners who enjoyed the fit of the Gaviota 2 that this is just going to be too narrow for them. But for me, it was perfect. I really enjoyed the fit of this shoe. So let's take a look at the tongue now. As I mentioned, it is a fully gusseted tongue, and this is a highly padded shoe. So it's got a lot of comfort in it. The amount of padding in this shoe around the heel collar and the tongue and all that kind of good stuff reminds me a lot of like the Saucony Triumph 18. I mean, it is just full of luxury and comfort. So plush is the word of the day, I think, with the Gaviota 3. And you can see that with the tongue, just how plush it is. So let's take a closer look at the padding around the heel collar and the tab of the shoe. And you can see that there is a ton of padding there. And it is super comfortable on foot. I would say even more so than what was in the Gaviota 2. And, that held up really well over time. So I don't expect anything different in terms of longevity and durability in this shoe at all. I think that these are a really well-built running shoe that, is going to hold up over time. Also, Hoka did not disappoint me. These do have a removable insole. I always appreciate that. It's nice to be able to pull them out, clean them up, put them back in, that kind of thing. And it adds a little bit of comfort to your run experience as well. Let's take a look at the heel counter. Now, this has a ton of structure. I can't even pinch these sides together hardly at all, either side to side, or if I tried to go forward with the shoe, I'm not, it's just really stable with a lot of structure. It's going to keep your heel in place just fine. So again, you can see here, if I try to push on that heel counter, it's really not going anywhere. And you probably noticed in that run footage, just how stable that was when I was hitting the ground. It really did a nice job of holding my heel in place. And it has a nice deep heel pocket that is created by all that padding around the heel collar and the tab of the shoe as well. So the fit on this shoe, I think, is a premium fit that goes right along with all of the luxury that they have built into the shoe. So let's talk about the midsole. Now, this is another change that they made here. So they've added a couple millimeters. I don't know that they needed to, because I thought that the Gaviota 2 is pretty darn plush as it is. But they did add 2 millimeters of foam to give it even a more plush ride. I didn't notice it that much in terms of differences between the two, because again, the Gaviota 2 is pretty plush ride. Maybe once I start putting on a lot more miles, I'll notice it more. Or if I start going on longer workouts, so you get up to that 10, 15 miles or so. In the run sequence that you saw, that was just about 5.5 miles or so on that truck around my town. But it's very comfortable. It's soft. It's highly cushioned. It has, now they don't have exact measurements out right now for the stack height, but because Hoka has indicated that they added 2 millimeters over the previous version of the shoe, I'm going to estimate it at 34 millimeter stack height in the heel and a 29 millimeter stack height in the forefoot. And regardless, it's plenty of foam. Now they have what they call a late stage meta rocker in the shoe, which simply means that they started curving that foam more late in the in your metatarsal, where your metatarsal head would fall. So in the early stage meta rocker, they would have that curvature start back a little bit further. Now what that means is that you have a flatter surface that you're landing on in that midfoot. I wish that it had maybe an early stage meta rocker, or maybe more of a rocker designed to that midsole overall, because as a midfoot striker, that when you land flat, yes, it's very stable, but you land flat. So when you hit, you kind of disjoints your roll through. So if it was curved, you would hit and you would just kind of roll through. Here you hit flat and then you roll through. So it's not quite as smooth through my gait cycle. Now, I did purposely do some heel striking to see how that felt, and it felt great. If you're a heel striker, this might be the right stability shoe for you, because it has a lot of cushion back here, and that it felt better in reality when I was hitting on my heel. It just seemed that like that foam compressed, and I did kind of roll through and felt a little bit more smooth. Or alternatively, when I got up more towards my forefoot off my midfoot, so when I started hitting closer to where that late stage meta rocker would be, then I felt like I was rolling through pretty smoothly. But as a solid midfoot striker, it's kind of a thud first and then roll through, and it just wasn't quite as smooth as some of the running shoes that I've been in recently. And I'm thinking of the Nike Infinity Run Flyknit 2, for example, that has that rocker on the bottom of it. So just something to consider when you're trying to decide which shoes to spend your hard-earned money on. So let's flip these over and we'll take a look at the outsole on these shoes. And here you can see where they have a lot of that stability built in. They have what they call their J-frame. And one of the things that I really need to note here is it did feel like there was more material, or at least more dense material, in the medial side of this shoe than there was in the Gaviota 2, especially back on this part of your heel. So this is my arch, and then right here, when I'm just walking in these shoes, I can feel where this is kind of hitting first. So I'm stepping, and then it's kind of doing one of these numbers a little bit when I'm walking. When I'm running, that's not an issue, because I'm coming down. Typically, I'm coming down on the lateral side of my shoe and rolling in. And this does an amazing job of slowing and reducing my pronation, because I do overpronate. And this is a fantastic shoe for that. It does stop that, or puts me in what I would say a healthy level of pronation. So they do a fantastic job when it comes to the purpose of the shoe, which is to provide some stability. Now, and they did change the outsole just a little bit from the previous version. They added this little bit of strip of blown rubber here as well. Otherwise, they've got plenty of it to help add some durability to that EVA foam that they have underfoot. But with this a little addition here, I appreciate that because I have a couple pairs of the Gaviota 2, and this part did wear down pretty quickly in that center section. Although I say quickly, I have over 1,000 miles on the one shoe. I guess it's all relative, but you did notice, I should say, the wear here as opposed to other places on the shoe. So in terms of performance, I mentioned already that, you know, it's not super smooth when you roll through on these shoes. They're not the fastest shoe out on the block. So, you know, you're not going to probably set your fastest, you know, PR in these shoes. But if you overpronate, you know, I think you can run pretty safely without risk of injury in these. I know I certainly have in the Gaviota 2. So it is a maximum cushion shoe with a maximum amount of stability. So if that's what you're looking for, then I think the Gaviota 3 might be the right shoe for you. Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I certainly enjoyed making it for you. As always, run tall, run strong, be kind to one another. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.